Up next.
Well, a nice bright red Pontiac GTP, one of the best looking cars on the road, I figure.
Well, it does look good, but does it measure up dynamically to its appearances?
Well, they say you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, and in the case of the GTP, it looks like $1 million, but it's kind of disappointing behind the wheel. The GTP is Pontiac's idea of a flat-out, no-holds-barred sports coupe. The styling in particular is aggressive and muscular, and for a change, the aerodynamic add-ons such as rear fender flares, side body cladding, and front air dam work for the overall appearance of the car and not against it, as is the case with the Mustang GT, for example. This is a good-looking set of wheels, no doubt about it. I especially like these exhaust pipe extensions at the back of the car. Power is delivered by a 3.4-liter V6 with 4 valves per cylinder and twin overhead camshaft. A very robust engine, and it develops 200 horsepower at 5,000 RPM, enough to send the manual transmission version of the GTP from 0 to 100 kilometers in about 8 seconds. 2 gearboxes are available, 4-speed automatic, which is what we tested, and a 5-speed manual. The Autobox is a little on the thirsty side and consumes 15.4 liters of fuel per 100 kilometers in the city and 8.8 on the highway. Price for the GTP is around $24,000, and it has a 3-year, 60,000 kilometer warranty. Now, the big problem with the GTP is that it's too loaded down with electronic doodads and gimmickry. It's much more of a Japanese-style techno cruiser than a European sports-style coupe, which is what it should be. For example, it has a little feature called HUD. This has nothing to do with Paul Newman movies, but stands for Heads-Up Display. The idea is to project a digital speedometer readout onto the windshield so that the driver won't have to look down at the instrument cluster. Nissan introduced HUD on the 240SX at least 3 years ago and quickly dropped it. Why? Because it's stupid. The GTP also has power front seats that have no less than 10 different controls, and they're still not as good as Saab or BMW. Good rear seat legroom, though, and the GTP apparently seats 5, but I wouldn't want to be the guy in the middle. Even the radio looks complicated, and I never did figure out the onboard computer. And this combination lock glove box is an interesting idea, but kind of pointless. It's almost as though Pontiac is trying to out-gadget the Japanese with the GTP, and they seem to have succeeded. They should have spent more time on suspension and handling than things like HUD and fancy power seats, because the GTP has mediocre cornering abilities and an absolutely huge turning radius. Nimble? It ain't. Most other cars in this market segment will run rings around it, and it's simply not the kind of car you want to put through a set of high-speed curves, despite Pontiac's claim to the contrary. It does have decent brakes, though, which are 4-wheel disc with Delco Moraine anti-lock. In other words, the Pontiac GTP is a typical GM product, a sharp-looking body wrapped around a decent drivetrain, but short of the mark when it comes to drivability, handling, and high-speed touring. There's lots of worthy rivals here, including the Ford Probe, Chev Camaro, Pontiac Firebird, Oldsmobile Calais Quad 442, and Chevy Lumina Z34. You could probably toss in the Ford Mustang GT and Thunderbird SC while you're at it. I can only give it a driving dollar value of half a tank, Tony. I liked it, but it's not what I want.
Well, I agree. It does look very nice. It's a super-looking car and so forth, but they've just shoveled in far too many gadgets. I mean, do we really need 200 or 300 little buttons and switches all over the inside of the car? I mean, concentrate on the basic dynamics first, right?
I want to point out that these are all, most of these things are optional. You can order them. They don't come with that car if you don't want them. You can step down and get a lesser model. But HUD, for example, who needs that? I mean, that is absolutely pointless in my opinion.
Well, of course, you know, it's been tried. It works very well with the F-16 fighter jets and so forth, where you can't take your eyes off anything for a second. But I found also that it reflects, we should explain, it reflects a little onto the screen, a little speedo reading and so forth. And the fact is that it's off-centered. It doesn't point at your head.
That's right.
You know, here is this thing which is supposed to give you the a break from staring at the dash, and it points over your shoulder somewhere, and it really annoyed me. It had no adjustment to take care of that.
Well, and given the General's history, any car that has this much electronic stuff in it worries me, because I think some of it will go bad, and you're going to have to fix it. I would never buy this car because of that.
I'm not worried about that. I think they've been doing this in Pontiacs for a long time now, and I don't hear any waves of complaint about these things. They do seem to work, and with solid-state electronics, they're pretty reliable. And that's not what bothers me. What bothers me is making up a radio faceplate that nobody but a midget could really work on, you know. Well, and 6 inches away, put the same knobs all over the steering wheel.
Well, what worries me is the fact that you can't drive this car as fast as you would like. You don't need HUD for this car. It's not going fast enough for you to worry about it. I mean, the car does not handle properly. They should have spent much more time on suspension and brakes, for example, than they have on electronic stuff. I mean,
well, that's true,
any car in this class will run away from this thing hands down.
Defending it, playing devil devil's advocate here. I think there are a lot of people out there, and they may all wear gold chains and open neck shirts and so forth, but there's a lot of people out there who really like this kind of interior. They like to have
I can see the letters coming now. I can see the
well, that's right. I wear gold chains myself sometimes, but there we go.
We got to go. Red light, green light. What don't we like? The gadgets drove us crazy. The handling, not up to par at all. On the other hand, good-looking car. We agree on that one. Drivetrain's pretty good. The brakes aren't bad, really. Driving dollar value, as I say, only half a tank. This is like too much stuff, not enough substance.
Well, stingy but well earned. Okay, stay with us. We'll be right back.